Hey guys, this is Coach Lowe, and we're going to talk about parallel lines and transversals. Talked a little bit about lines and transversals on the previous video, and now we're going to look at, okay, what happens when lines are parallel? Magical things happen is what happens when lines are parallel. So let's start with two parallel lines, and we have a transversal. And remember, a transversal is a line that cuts through two or more lines at different points. So we'll call this transversal T, and this is line AB and line BC, or excuse me, CD. And these two lines are parallel to each other, so remember the marking for parallel. We might see these in black, or they may be a different color, but that is the marking for parallel. And also written would be AB is parallel to CD. We'll go ahead and put line symbols above those. All right. We know that when we have a line cut by a transversal, we have four angles that are formed. And we looked in the previous video at different types of angles here: alternate interior, alternate exterior, vertical angles, linear pairs, corresponding angles, consecutive interior, which was same side interior. So we checked all of those out. Today, we're going to look at, since these lines are parallel to each other, some super cool things happen. So let's start with angle 1, and let's talk about corresponding angles. So angle 1 and angle 5 are corresponding. Now, you might notice something about these two angles, where yesterday they didn't look like they had any relationship at all except they were in the same spot. Today, if I pick these four angles up and drop them on these four, they look exactly the same. Corresponding angles are congruent. They have the same measure. So now angle 1 is congruent to angle 5. And let's finish this up. Angle 4 is congruent to angle 8. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 7, and sorry, angle 6, and angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. So corresponding angles are congruent. That means they have the same measure. So if I tell you that angle 1 is 110 degrees, you know that angle 5 is 110 degrees. Well, you also know that about angle 3, because remember, angles 1 and 3 are vertical. So now we know 3 and 7 are also 110 degrees. Now we can move on and we can find other angles from there because we know about linear pairs, but we're just going to hold on that. I'm not going to get too super excited about this yet. All right, so let's talk about alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. So alternating the transversal and on the inside of the parallel lines. So that would be angles 3 and 5 would be alternate interior angles. Now look at those measures. Those look like those are also exactly the same. In fact, we just talked about 1 and 5 being the same measure and 1 and 3 being the same measure because they're vertical angles. That forces 1 and 5, right? That's a transitive property. 1 and 5 are congruent. 3 and 1 are congruent. And so we know that 5 and 3 are congruent. All right, so alternate interior angles. So angle 3 would be congruent to angle 5. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Angle 4 is congruent to angle 6. All right, let's talk about alternate exterior. All right, so alternate exterior, outside the lines, but alternating the transversal. So we know that would be angle 1 and angle 7. Angle 1 and angle 7, again, congruent to each other. And then angle 2 and angle 8. So outside the lines, alternating the transversal. All right, same side interior, same side interior. So inside, and we'll bounce around those, or bounce from one line to the other. So same side interior would be angle 3 and angle 6. So that's also called consecutive interior. Now look at those angles. Are they the same? Well, I have one obtuse and one acute. Not the same. But we know that 3 and 5 are the same. And we know something cool about 5 and 6. They're a linear pair. Okay, now wait a minute. 3 and 5 are the same measure. 5 and 6 add to be 180. That means 3 and 6 are also supplementary. They also add to be 180. So consecutive interior angles are supplementary. So angle 3 plus angle 6, the measure of those, would equal 180. And then the measure of angle 4 plus the measure of angle 5 would also be equal to 180. All right, so consecutive interior angles are supplementary. Same side of the transversal, inside the parallel lines. Same thing is true about consecutive exterior. 2 and 7 would be supplementary. 1 and 8 would be supplementary. All right, let's try an example real quick, and we will pick this up in class. All right, so this time I'm going to draw 4 lines on here, and you might want to draw this on your paper as well. All right, so I have several transversals on here, but first, these 2 lines are parallel to each other. And then these 2 guys, I'll put 2 arrows on those, even though it's a different color, are parallel to each other. All right. So let's say that this angle is 105 degrees. All right. Let's see how many of these angles we can fill in just from that one. All right. So some things that we know. We know corresponding angles are exactly the same spot. They will be the same measure. So I can come all the way down here with 105. I also know vertical angles are the same. All right, knowing that's the same and then this is vertical, I have this one filled in already. I can also double check alternate interior, same measure. All right, so that was using the red parallel lines cut by a blue transversal. What if I use the blue parallel lines cut by the red transversal? Well, I know alternate interior angles, so that makes this 105. These 2 are inside the blue parallel lines and alternating the transversal. And then I can use either corresponding angles or vertical angles to get that 105. All right, we can either use the blue lines cut by a red transversal or the red lines cut by the blue transversal. It makes no difference. I'm going red and blue. All right, so corresponding, totally fine. Alternate interior, we could use vertical as well. Cool. We have half of this problem finished already. All right, next question. Well, how much is this guy right here? Well, let's talk linear pairs. We know that 105 plus this angle has to give us 180 degrees. Those 2 angles are a linear pair. They're adjacent to each other. Backside, non-common side forms a line. All right, so 180 minus 105 gives us 75 degrees. So this angle is 75. Guess what? All of these angles will be 75. How cool is that? Yep. So every single one of those angles, 75 degrees. So how do I know that? Well, we can start here with this linear pair, but notice, remember yesterday, we worked around all of these with linear pairs. So all of these form linear pairs. Then we can go corresponding or alternate interior. We can go alternate exterior with those 2, and then come back over here, alternate interior, or we can go alternate exterior, vertical, all kinds of good stuff. All right, guys, this is Coach Lowe, and I'm out.